Hello friends, so today's video is going to be a tier ranking of all of the new fantasy sequels and series conclusions that I picked up this year. I have done a similar video for new fantasy standalones as well as new first in series fantasy books, and with the first in series I'm a little more forgiving because we're establishing the stakes, we're getting the story started, and a lot of times in fantasy it takes a while. We need to lay that foundation, so really all you need to do is make me intrigued, make me want to read the sequel, and have me captivated enough that I feel like, okay, I'm in. And then with standalones, it's a completed story. It's not as big of a commitment, but I'm a little harder on standalones than I am first in series. I would say I'm the hardest on sequels and series conclusions. My biggest request with sequels and conclusions is don't make me like the series less. I don't even need you to make, it doesn't even have to be as good as the first book in the series. It just needs to not be so much lower that I'm then wondering if I even want to keep going. So that contributes to the tiers. For the bottom tier, it's not for me. I didn't really love the conclusion. I don't want to continue on with the series anymore. With the second to last tier, this is a spot for books that I likely won't continue on. It's not that I absolutely hated the ending or anything like that. It's just, okay, maybe this wasn't the series for me, or I don't think I want to keep going. With the middle, it's self-explanatory. Maybe I'll go on, maybe I won't. I don't have super strong feelings either way. And then with the top two, the second tier is definitely will continue, really liked it. And then the very top is fantastic. Great sequel, about as good as I could have asked for, if not exceeding my expectations. I am not going to be going super in depth with what these books are about. If you're interested in seeing that information, I'll have all of my new releases wrap-ups that are related to these books in the description bar down below. But anyway, jumping into this tier ranking. Oh no. So I just saw the first one is in the bottom. The first one is Fevered Star. It's going in the bottom tier because I really, really liked Black Sun. I liked the world, I liked the character interactions, I liked so much about Black Sun. It was really fast-paced and it made you want to turn the page constantly. And then you get to the end, and at least for me, I flew through that first book, and then by the end, it was sort of such a whirlwind that I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for the next book because I feel like I barely scratched the surface. And then the second book took away a lot of the things that I liked about the first, and I'm intrigued by where things left off, but I also don't know if I'm going to keep going because I didn't care for the sequel. You get it. Anyway, moving on to the next one, Hunger of the Gods. This is going in the second spot. The only reason I think it's not going at the very top, even though I really like this series, and I really like this book, and I really like these characters, and I really like the world, and I like so much about it, I liked this one a little less than the first. I liked the way that we incorporated some new perspectives. I really like what they brought to the table. But at the same time, some of our characters from the first book, I felt, and I've said this in pretty much every video where I talk about it, some of the characters had very similar plot lines where it's kind of like, we're looking for this group of people. And another person's like, we're looking for a group of people. And not only were those plot lines kind of similar, but they were also kind of similar to a plotline from book one. And so it was just, I wanted maybe something a little bit newer feeling to the story, but I still really, really liked it. Next up we have For the Throne, the sequel to For the Wolf. This was the conclusion to this duology. I liked the first one more. I didn't really like the second one. I didn't dislike it, but I found it made me like the first one a little less. And so I didn't hate it, but it's going in the second to last tier. Next up we have Inadequate Heir. This is in the Bridge Kingdom series, which the first two are in a sense like their own duology, and then this third one, it's kind of interesting in that it somewhat takes place at the same time as events from the second book, but you follow different characters, so you're kind of seeing what was going on with those characters during the second book in the series. And I liked this third book, I think, less than both of the previous ones, but it didn't make me retroactively dislike the first two. I think it exists somewhere between the middle and the second one, but I think I gotta put it in the middle. For the longest time, I didn't do tier rankings because I'm like, nobody's gonna enjoy watching me just sit and contemplate and overthink everything. So I'm sorry. I think I'm putting it in the middle. I'll put it in the middle. Middle. I don't know. It changes from day to day. The next one, Master of Iron. I loved Master of Iron. It was more of what I was hoping for. Trisha Levenseller, I always talk about how I don't know what it is about her writing, her characters, her worlds, the sense of adventure, but she writes it all in a way that I just think is so fun. It's like my comfort read. It's the thing I pick up when I'm reading something after A Hunger of the Gods. You know, Hunger of the Gods being like this really intense Viking-esque fantasy, big world, great lore, and then I'm like, let's go on an adventure. Next up, we have These Twisted Bonds, which is the sequel to, I think, These Hollow Vows. And These Hollow Vows was nothing particularly original, I would say. It's one of those angsty fae stories with a love triangle, and it's really clear the archetypes that we're getting, and it was predictable, but I'm like, all right, it's fun. But the sequel, I don't know. It was strange. I guess it's probably more of the same, but I was like, I don't know. I don't care. So it goes in the not for me tier. After that, we have Fury Song. I loved Fury Song. It's not even my favorite book in this trilogy, but it was still one of my favorite things I've ever read. Has one of the most emotional scenes I have ever read, among many emotional scenes in a trilogy as a whole that is very emotional. There's a reason it's one of my favorite series of all time. I love, love, love the Aurelian Cycle. I cannot wait for what Rosario Munda does next. After that, we have The Ballad of Never After, which continued to be silly nonsense and super angsty and over the top and about as ridiculous and absurd as can be. Ballad of Never After, abstract, crazy silliness, goes in the second tier. The Dragon's Promise, I did not love as much as the first one. I really liked Six Crimson Cranes. I thought it was really sweet. I thought it was a lovely story, and also the arc of the character was really enjoyable. It was one of those stories that it's the kind of thing I might recommend to my nieces, and it's just kind of got this wholesome feeling to it where it's kind of walking that line between middle grade and young adult. The second book I liked. I don't know that I felt it was absolutely necessary. I mean, I think there were certain resolutions that I liked, certain ways in which the character kind of comes to terms with certain things. So I liked that journey for the character, but I also kind of think Six Crimson Cranes, if it had been just a little longer, if we'd maybe done a few things differently, it could have been a standalone. So I think that one's going in the middle. After that, we have an actual middle grade story, which would be Amari and the Great Game. And this was so much fun, a great sequel, definitely a middle grade story I would recommend to a lot of kids, but adults too, because it's just so fun and it immediately pulls you in and you immediately feel for Amari and you're immediately gripped by everything that's happening. We return to this story with a bang, and there's some unexpected twists and turns throughout, and where it leaves off is really exciting. So this is going in the second tier. Hi, Luna. Bear, what are you doing? Somebody is a grumbly girl. Hi. You were very noisy. Oh. Hi, little bear. Oh. Hi. Hi. Oh, hello. Hello, snort. 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 Hi. Oh. Excuse you. Wow. Bless you. Do you want a snacky?
Do you want a snacky? Okay, don't tell Dad. Come. Okay, let's go. Show me. I know I'm coming. Snacky.
Next up, we have Defend the Dawn. This is a sequel to Defy the Night. This is going in the middle tier. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. I didn't dislike it. It's about as in the middle as I probably can feel. After that, we have 10,000 Stitches, which is also going in the middle. This one I was unsure whether I should put it in the standalones video or this video because they're a series of standalones. But this one and Long Shadow to me just, they almost felt like even though they are standalones, they somewhat rely on some of what was established in Half a Soul. Regardless, this one's going in the middle. It had the unfortunate situation where I loved the first one so much and I didn't love this one as much, and it kind of made it very obvious that I didn't love it as much. And then with Long Shadow, this one is going in the second to last tier. I found that with each book after Half a Soul that I didn't like them as much as the previous books. And with Long Shadow in particular, I just found that the plot line itself was probably one of my least favorites. I still really like the tone and the overall feel of all of the books in this series of standalones, but Half a Soul I just loved so much, and these ones I didn't feel quite the same. Next up are sequels where the first books in these series came out earlier this year, and for both of these I liked the second book less than the first, and that would be a Venom Dark and Sweet and Heart of the Sun Warrior. I'm putting both of these in the middle. If I had an additional category, it would probably go between middle and second tier. I liked both of these. I did not like them as much as the first ones, and the first ones already were in the second tier. They weren't all-time favorites. And so with those being the second and me liking these ones a little less, it ended up resulting in them being in the middle, but I think I like them more than some of the other ones that have been in the middle on this list. It's just kind of a tough, I didn't like it as much as I'm repeating myself. They're just in the middle. We also have Duel with the Vampire Lord. This is another series of standalones. I wasn't sure if I should put it in standalones or in the sequels category. I'm including it in the sequels. And for me, I quite liked this one. I liked seeing this author's, oh my gosh, my dog is very grunty right now. I enjoyed seeing this author's take on vampires. I liked the discovery of the history between vampires and humans and the way that that unfolds throughout the story. That said, it's not probably a new favorite by any means. It's one that I enjoy coming back to this series of standalones, but it's not anything that is really mind-blowing for me. So it's going in the middle. And then last we have The Lost Metal. Obviously this is the final book in Mistborn Era 2. It was not an absolute favorite of mine. I thought it was a very satisfying conclusion. I actually kind of wish we had seen a little bit more, but it's difficult because the Cosmere is continuing to get bigger and bigger, and with each new installment, it's more and more obvious that the Cosmere exists. So sometimes you get introduced to things and you're excited to potentially see them in the next Cosmere book, but then it's like, not yet. That's still just for later. And so it has some things that make you want more. You want to discover more. And I also, it's no secret, there's a certain character that irritates me in Era 2, and they continued to irritate me in that book. But I really liked the pacing. I liked how action-packed it was. I liked the way the action itself was written. I liked how high stakes it was. So while it wasn't an absolute favorite, I didn't love it the way I loved Fury Song. I still thought it was a very solid end to a series. I still really liked it. On reflection, when I first finished it, I was like, oh, maybe I like it the most of Era 2, but now that it's settled in a little bit, I'm like, no, Shadows of Self is still my favorite. That's it for some of the new fantasy releases that were sequels or series conclusions from this year. Let me know what some of your favorite series conclusions and sequels were. What were some that didn't quite work out for you or that you didn't find that they delivered on what you were hoping. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.